What is up everyone, welcome back to the channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jordan and I'm a second year medical student in the state of New Jersey. It is Monday of my exam week for my GI block and I wanted to take you through the week because I don't have many more of these left. My school has a fairly accelerated preclinical curriculum and we only have 7 blocks total. Like I said, we are in our GI block, which is our 6th block, which means I only have one more course after this for all of medical school. So since this is my second to last exam week ever, I thought I would vlog it. So yesterday, Sunday, I went on a 10-mile run, which was pretty crazy. Definitely the longest run I've ever been on. I've been trying to get more into cardio this year, and I've actually started to enjoy it, which is something I never thought I would say. Yeah, yesterday went on that run and then posted a video going over how I use Notion. So if you haven't seen that yet, go check it out. Then the rest of the day, I've just been studying, and today, a lot of the same. Today, I'm reviewing weeks 1 and 2 of the block, which was a lot of biochemistry. They were probably my 2 least favorite weeks of the course, so it's been a bit of a struggle to go through. A lot of our blocks follow a similar pattern where the first few weeks will be a lot of the background and the normal physiology, and then you move into the actual diseases as the course progresses. So that just means our first few weeks are typically a little bit boring compared to the later ones, since that's when you actually get into the diseases and learn about what happens when the normal physiology goes wrong and what you can do about it. Tomorrow I have my OSCE, which is basically our clinical skills exam. Clinical skills during this block really haven't been too bad because we actually learned the abdominal exam back like almost a year ago in our anatomy block. So I feel really comfortable with a lot of the stuff we have to do tomorrow since we've been doing it for so long. Even though we had already learned the abdominal physical exam, even though we already learned a lot of the physical exam maneuvers, we still had to learn all of the common causes for GI complaints like abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting. So I think the biggest thing for tomorrow is taking a really detailed history because a lot of GI complaints present very similarly. So you have to use their story and their risk factors to come up with the most likely cause of what's going on. As we've moved through each block, they have made our OSCEs a little bit more comprehensive and they've expected more out of us, which they should. So that'll be another challenge tomorrow because we're seeing the most amount of standardized patients that we ever have. That is it for right now though. I need to go study and prep for this OSCE. Alright, so I just got done with my OSCE a little bit ago and have been relaxing a little bit. Overall, my OSCE went pretty well. I lucked out and got one of the earliest possible times that we could have had, which is great because that means I just got it out of the way and now I can focus on our written exam, which is Friday. For today's OSCE, we had 3 standardized patients back to back, and as I mentioned earlier, that's the most amount of standardized patients we've had in one OSCE. Without going into too much detail, we had 2 patients who came in with a chief complaint of abdominal pain and 1 that was a diabetes follow-up. Managing diabetes is a huge and incredibly important topic, so I'm glad that my school is focusing on that. I've seen so many patients with diabetes in my longitudinal clinical preceptorship, and the prevalence is only going up. This encounter was unique because it blended our sort of typical encounter with elements of a motivational interview. We've previously had motivational interviews for our OSCEs. Last block we had to counsel someone on smoking cessation. That was strictly a conversation, no physical exam or anything like that. This diabetes encounter, however, was sort of a hybrid. So we did our normal history and then did a physical that was sort of designed for a diabetes patient, like looking at their retina to see if there was any changes, examining their foot to see if they have any loss of sensation, but a lot of it was counseling them on lifestyle changes because that's so important for people with diabetes. I found it really interesting because I'm someone who is into nutrition and fitness, so it was nice to bring in sort of my knowledge that I've had from stuff on my own and, you know, my major in college and all that, be able to use it to help counsel a patient. I could probably make a whole video on diabetes and lifestyle modification, so I will just leave it at that. Our other 2 encounters were pretty run-of-the-mill. Both patients had a chief complaint of abdominal pain, so took history, did a physical, came up with a plan, and then talked about what the next steps were with the patient. Another new thing in this OSCE was the amount of notes we had to write. Previously, I think we've only had to write 1 note after an encounter in an OSCE, but for this one we had to write notes for all 3 of our encounters. So we had 25 minutes for the encounter itself, and then immediately after we had 20 minutes to write a note. This really made it feel like we were working in a clinic, just seeing patients like a doctor would. 20 minutes isn't a lot of time to write a note, so it was basically just nonstop action. As soon as you were done with the patient, you would write your note and then immediately go into the next room. So from that perspective, it was exciting and made the time go by a lot faster. So for the rest of the day, the plan is to just study as much as I can. I'm always a little bit unmotivated the first few hours after my OSCE, but thankfully we have some peer review sessions tonight, so that'll be an easy way to force myself to study. We typically have weekly review sessions that are led by M3s or M4s, and they go over like the previous week's material. So this week we're going over week 7 material, but also since it's an exam week, there's going to be an extra hour at the end that is just open for questions about the whole course. So it should be a very helpful session. Alright, it is Friday and I just got back from my exam. The past few days have been pretty uneventful aside from just studying. I finished up all of the review from our past weeks on Wednesday, I think, and then yesterday was just strictly about doing practice problems, going over old quizzes that we've had, because there's usually 1 or 2 questions from those quizzes that pop up on the final exam. And then the exam today started at 8. We had until I think 12:30 to complete it, but I finished a little bit early. So then I ran some errands and then went back to school because we always have an exam review the same day of the exam. So what that is, basically a few hours after the exam is over, we're able to go back in and look at the exam to see what we got right and wrong. It's really nice. Very different from college or like taking the MCAT, where you take an exam and you don't know the score for many weeks. This way you have a pretty general sense of how you did the same day, which I think is amazing. We always say during your exam review, that's like probably the worst that you could possibly do, because they're always bound to throw out 1 or 2 questions that they deem were sort of unfair or worded weirdly, and the students are part of that. So aside from just looking at what you got right and wrong, you're able to talk to the professors. They're usually all there or all on Zoom, and you're actually even able to write like a formal complaint about a question and sort of explain why you think that it was unfair, or why you think that what answer you put is also correct. So it's a pretty fair way of going about things. Nothing's official, but I did pretty well, so I'm pretty confident that I passed. I got about as many wrong as I normally do, and I've passed everything so far, so that's a good sign. But we won't have anything finalized for a few weeks, but I do feel pretty good. So feels great to be done with an exam. There's really no better feeling than finishing an exam on Friday, feeling good about it, and then having the whole weekend to just relax. Something that doesn't happen too often in medical school. Tonight I'm going over to one of my classmates' apartments, just gonna have a small get together with a few of our classmates to celebrate being done with our second to last class. Tomorrow I'm going to the city with Mackenzie and we are celebrating our 1-year anniversary. Technically it was last Saturday, but we were like, all right, let's push things off and just wait until after the exam, because we will be a lot more relaxed and be able to enjoy ourselves a lot more. And I'm already glad that we made that decision, because I'm a lot more relaxed now than I was a week ago. But that's it for right now. I will check in soon. Alright, so it is Sunday morning, and so far I've had a very nice weekend. Like I said, Friday night just went over to a classmate's apartment, hung out, nothing too crazy. It was very nice to hang out with my classmates in a relaxed setting where no one had to worry about studying. And then yesterday morning, woke up and was once again just able to relax. Just sort of lounged around, then went to the gym, and then went to the city. Wasn't the most beautiful day. It kind of rained on us, but it really wasn't a big deal, thankfully. We went to a bar called Death and Company that I've wanted to go to for years. Normally they have a really long wait time, but we wanted to get there as soon as they opened to hopefully get seated right away, and thankfully we were. It was a really great experience. It was honestly way too dark in there to film anything, so I didn't get any shots, but very cool atmosphere, nice bartenders, everything was awesome. And then afterwards we went to sort of a Korean American fusion restaurant called Nawan, and that was one of the best meals that we have ever had. They had really unique dishes like chopped cheese, rice cakes, and a kimchi burger. All in all, great night, great weekend, and a really nice way to celebrate being done with our GI course. So like I've said, that was our second to last course. We start our new course tomorrow, Monday, and it's called Neuroscience and Behavior. So it is sort of our neuro and psych block, and honestly I'm pretty excited for it. I don't have too much of an interest in either of those specialties, but it's something that I don't really have a lot of experience with. I took a lot of anatomy and physiology classes in college, so at least in like our cardio, pulm, and renal blocks, like it's a lot of content that I've seen before, but we kind of skipped completely over neuro and psych because it's so complex. So while it'll probably be a struggle with it being a lot of content that I really have no experience with, I think that will also make it more interesting. The first few days are sort of the basics, a lot of central nervous system, brain, spinal cord, anatomy, and general function. But even just towards the end of the week, we start learning actual pathologies. Another thing with this course that's a little bit different than others is we haven't done any neuroanatomy yet. During our anatomy block, I think we did cranial nerves, but that was pretty much it. Also, we did a little bit of like spinal cord anatomy because we did learn about like vertebrae and the muscles around there. So we sort of know the general anatomy of the spinal cord, but in terms of actual neuroanatomy, we didn't touch it at all, just because we were going to go much more in depth with it in this course. So that'll be a daunting task because neuroanatomy is extremely complex, but it will be nice to be back in the anatomy lab because we haven't been there in so long. This block is 8 weeks long, which is sort of our typical length for a block. It means we'll have 7 weeks of instruction and then 1 exam week. And then we're done with our preclinical curriculum. It's so crazy to think that we are almost done and then moving into clerkships. Once we're done with this block, we will have a transitional clerkship is what they call it. It's like 3 or 4 weeks of a clerkship boot camp is, I think, the best way to describe it. I really don't have too many details of what is going to happen during it, but I know it's kind of pretty long days. We're at the school. I think a lot of what it's going to be is refreshing and learning new physical exam skills, doing sort of like orientation things for clerkships. I think we might go to a hospital and go on rounds once, just so we have a general idea of what's going on before we start so we can hit the ground running. Alright, well that is going to do it for today's video. If you enjoyed, please be sure to leave a like below and subscribe if you want to see videos like this in the future. Thanks, and I'm going to see you in the next one.